Hello, and welcome to day 12 of the Ability event. And happy Friday. And today's Arts Happy Hour is with Gaelynn Lea. Gaelynn Lea is a very talented violinist who is going to share her talent by playing the violin, but also sharing her story as she discusses disability and arts and music all with us today. I hope that you'll enjoy this conversation and you'll be able to join us as we continue to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the ADA and also to talk about disability rights, the disability policy in the country, and how we can engage others on disability rights and issues across the country and around the world. I hope you have a great day. Take care.
Hello, welcome to Embracing the Difference Globally, the Ability Event Friday Happy Hour. I'm Vincent Peterson, a student at Metropolitan State University. I'm a white male with brown hair, facial hair, and a blue shirt. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I would now like to turn it over to Gaelynn Lea for her introduction, audio description, and her happy hour performance.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Gaelynn Lea, and I am a white woman in an electric wheelchair. I have medium length brown hair, and I am wearing a white and orange and pink patterned dress, and I have a pink hair clip on the right hand or left hand side. I'm bad at right and left. And I am holding my violin upright like a cello in my wheelchair. And so I am very grateful to be here today. One moment. And I am excited to speak with you. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm trying to think, I'm seated in my kitchen with my violin. And so I'm looking forward to performing for you today. Before I start speaking, I thought that I would kind of talk a little bit about the Americans with Disabilities Act and the kind of advocacy that I see needs to happen, and this idea that I am very passionate about, which is that disability is a form of diversity and that we can have pride in our identity as disabled people. And so the first thing I want to share with you is that if you didn't already know, which I'm sure you do from being at these events, is that the Americans with Disabilities Act turned 30 on July 26th. So it was signed into law 30 years ago today, not today, in July. And we have made a lot of progress in some areas in terms of accessibility for buildings and education and more people with disabilities employed, but we have so far to go. And in many ways, people with disabilities as a minority group are not faring well compared to the rest of society. People with disabilities are twice as likely to live in poverty and many times more likely to be unemployed than their non-disabled counterparts. And things like abuse and lack of access are very prevalent in the disability community still today. So I think that it makes us ask the question, what are we doing as a society to not just enforce the Americans with Disabilities Act, but also what are we doing as a society to support disability rights as human rights and as a form of diversity. For me, it is frustrating that we do still live in a time where people with disabilities are constantly having to work to preserve the rights that were only given to us 30 years ago. Recently, a bill, H.R. 620, was actually passed in the House and luckily did not get passed in the Senate that would have weakened the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is the first bill that would effectively have rolled back civil rights and not increased them. And so we're not at a place where we can rest easy, where we can feel like our work on disability rights is come to fruition, because although we have made progress, we're still having to defend those rights on a daily basis. I think what I would love to see in our society is two things. I would like to see people without disabilities educating themselves on disability issues. It became clear to me a few years ago that a big reason that we don't have more visibility with disability rights is we just don't learn about it in our mainstream culture. Our education programs really don't cover disability except for some specialized college degrees. And in terms of what we learn as children and up into high school, as into adulthood, we don't learn about disability rights the same way we are learning about other civil rights movements in our education. And although I would say all civil rights education is somewhat lacking in America, it is definitely a big deal that we haven't even begun to cover it in schools, because you don't know how to fix a problem if you don't know that a problem exists. So since we have this big gap in education, I think it's important for able-bodied people to realize that they need to even out the playing field and learn about disability history and disability rights and some of these social issues, and take it upon themselves to do some of that learning so that they can be better educated allies and work when we do have things like healthcare on the table, or accessibility like the ADA trying to be rolled back, that people will be aware of the issues. And so education is a key. The other thing that I really want to see in my lifetime is a change in the way we talk about and perceive disability in our culture. So disability pride is a concept that has been around for a very long time, but I did not know about it until I was in college. Disability pride is the idea that disability is not positive or negative, but that it is just a part of your identity, the way that any other facet of your identity is kind of intertwined with your whole being. That's what disability is. For disabled people. And so if it's part of your identity and you have the belief, which I do, that all people have value, then you can suddenly stop talking about disability in terms of a challenge to be overcome, or a barrier that should be pitied or feared, or any other kind of negative connotation, and just start talking about disability as a realistic part of the human experience that all of us will probably face at some point or another, either in our own lives or in the lives of someone that we love. Disability is the one group that you can join at any time in your life. And so it is not an anomaly, but it's actually just a state of society that's been around since the beginning of humankind. And so when we stop making disability a negative thing, and instead accept the people in our society for just who they are as a part of their identity, we can do a much better job, I think, of incorporating disabled people into society, because we will see them as valuable individuals regardless of their physical or mental or emotional state. We will see them as part of the fabric that just needs to be included because we believe that all people matter. So disability pride and the concept of disability as diversity, to me, takes away the negative stigma of disability and then can replace it with, how can we support disabled people to live as independently and as um, enriching a manner as possible? How can we support that? And then also, how can we look to the contributions of disabled people and value them as part of this intricate cultural fabric that we now live in, especially in America, where we acknowledge that diversity matters and that it brings a different view that is worthwhile, especially in this setting of America, realizing that disability is another group, another cultural group really, that can contribute to society and make it more diverse and move it forward faster in the direction of human progress. That is actually really inspiring and exciting to me. And so I think, as a person, if you are a disabled person and you're watching this happy hour, just know that I think we're at the beginning of a change, a cultural shift, and that we can all be parts of that exciting change. And if you are non-disabled, realize maybe where you do lack knowledge, or if you carry around this negative bias about disability, I would encourage you to start reading about disability pride or listening to some podcasts that talk about disability pride or the Americans with Disabilities Act, because in reality, disabled people have added a lot to our culture, and not only that, are so creative and vibrant that it's a shame that we don't learn about them more often. The piece of history I wish I had learned about as a younger person was the 504 sit-in. The 504 sit-in was the longest sit-in government building conducted in the history of the United States, and it was run by disabled people, and it was intersectional in that the LGBT movement and the Black Panthers, they all supported this amazing multiple week sit-in, and because of that, we had the Section 504 passed, and eventually we were able to get the ADA. But that piece of history of a very committed and radical group of people coming together and uniting different cultural groups around this issue of equality, I think that that is a pretty amazing story, and not because of what people overcame, but because it's legitimately neat to hear and see people asserting their rights and being creative and fighting for what they believe in. And so disability is a cultural group that I am proud to be a part of, and I think that we have a lot to contribute to society, and the sooner that we can all realize the value of supporting and celebrating diversity rather than viewing it negatively or trying to undo social programming, the faster we will progress. So thank you for having me. I'm going to do a few songs for you now, and then I am really excited about the idea of doing a Q&A if anyone is interested. So stick around after the music. And the first song I'm going to do for you is called Watch the World Unfold. It is a song that I wrote back in maybe 2013, and it is about the idea that you don't have to be so hard on yourself when you make mistakes. So here we go. This is Watch the World Unfold. Oh, for those of you who maybe are not able to see or are not as familiar with my music, before I start playing, I want to explain one quick thing. I use a looping pedal, which is an electronic recording device, and it is in my wheelchair right by my leg, and I push the left-hand button on the looping pedal and hold it down when I play, and while the button is held down, I am recording, and then the second I let go of the button, that piece that I just recorded plays back again and again and again, and I can actually add multiple layers to this and build up many different layers of violin parts to sing over. And so it's all done live, which means it can either be really awesome or go terribly wrong, depending on the song. But that is how I realized that I could perform solo on a violin and still sing. So this is an example of my original music. This is Watch the World Unfold. Question that? pushing up through the dirt just like a seed, but you're never quite a flower. You feel more just like a weed, driving through, driving through. You wanna know where you are going, but the windshield's always dirty, and you never get to see what makes you think that you'll ever get there. What makes you think you deserve to know? Who are you really? Are you so important? Take a look around and watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Need advice, you have no clue what you're doing. Moral compass it is spinning, an identity unhinged. Where to turn, where to turn? There's so many opinions, and they're all a little different, and the outlook's getting dim. What makes you think that you'll ever get there? What makes you think you deserve to know? Who are you really? Are you so important? Take a look around and watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Pushing up through the dirt just like a seed, but you're never quite a flower. You feel more just like a weed. Cool, thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much to Ezra for interpreting. I love having ASL at every event. I wish that I could have him at all of my events, although I did just start a commitment to have captioning at all of my YouTube performances. I do a show every Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. and realizing, especially during COVID, how important this is to make sure that your materials are accessible to people who are not going to go outside and see you live. It's very important to me to make my shows accessible. But I love ASL because every interpreter has a slightly different take on the same song, and it's very fun. So the next song I'm going to perform for you is called Someday We'll Linger in the Sun. And this is a song that I wrote several years back, and I entered it in the 2016 Tiny Desk Contest, which I won out of 6,000 people from across the country, which was very, very surprising. And I was able to start touring nationally and internationally for the last 4 years when that happened. And so this song had really changed my life in a lot of ways, but it is about how love is beautiful even when it is difficult or complicated. Hey, Paul, can I check one thing? I'm just going to check a sound setting really quick. Just go to more real quick. Click the screen one time, and then go to more in the corner. Okay, we're fine. And then, yeah, there you go. Cool, we're fine. I just wanted to make sure that the sound was coming through the right way. So this is Someday We'll Linger in the Sun. It would help if I turned the looping pedal on. Sorry about that. This is what I mean. It's all done live, so things go wrong. But here we go. I'm going to start again. Our love's a complex vintage wine, all rotted leaves and lemon rind. I spit you out, but now you're mine. We bit the fruit, it seemed a lie. I'll never know which way was right. Now side by side, we face the night. And I love you. And I love you. We walked the pier and back again. It was the most scared I've ever been. You held my hand until the end. And I love you. And I love you. Don't tell me we've got time. The subtleties of life, it slips away when we pay no mind. We pull the leaves out till the dawn, nearly too tired to carry on. Someday we'll linger in the sun, and I love you. And I love you. That is Someday We'll Linger in the Sun. Thank you so much for listening. I have a couple more songs for you before we do the Q&A. This next song is one of the newer songs that I have written. I released it in the fall of last year, and it's called The Long Way Around. And it's about relationships that maybe go through a period of struggle that is difficult and frustrating, but if you make it through to the other side, how that can make the relationship even more enriching because you've been through that. So this is called The Long Way Around. There's a music video of it online, and I hope you enjoy. When two souls meet, the whole world feels new. Shared romance, sweet, all colors bright and true. There is laughter, and there are good things growing everywhere. And I'm happy to be in this place with you. And I'm happy to be in this place. You let it out. You laid it all across the table. What's this about? And you're making me unstable, and I don't wanna go down this road with you. No, I don't want to go down this road. I want to go, but I can't, and I won't. I'll learn to sew up the wounds that I broke open with you, 'cause I knew and I chose, and I don't feel at home in this world anymore. No, I don't feel at home in this world. nobody wins. If there is flight without the landing, and we learn to keep our hearts in time, try not to burn the careful ties that bind us together. And I'm taking the long way around with you. And I'm taking the long way around. And I'm happy to be in this place with you. And I'm taking the long way around. Cool. Thank you so much. I am really grateful to be here as part of this many day celebration of diversity and inclusion and ability. I am grateful to be a part of it, and I hope that you are enjoying the rest of the month and all of the events that have come before this. I have one more song for you today, and then if there are any questions, I am happy to answer them and chat with you for a little bit before we head out. So enjoy your happy hour. This last song I thought I would end on is about disability rights. Disability rights in America is, as I said, tenuous at best. We have made a lot of progress, but there is work to be done. And in many ways, unfortunately, the Americans with Disabilities Act has not been enforced the way that it should be, and that it's only really as strong as its enforcement, right? And so I wrote this song called I Wait, and I wrote it specifically when we were having healthcare debates back in 2017, or whatever year that was, where John McCain famously came up on the floor and thumbs down and saved Medicaid. It was a very scary time if you had a disability and relied on healthcare through the government to be independent, to get personal care assistance and wheelchairs and all the things that you need to be independent. But the real issue that was frustrating with me was how little people were talking about disability during these discussions. I would read, even in progressive publications, all the groups of people that would be affected by changing public health care, and then very often they wouldn't mention disabled people at all, or they would mention it as a side note, and I felt like we were being erased from the conversation. So I wrote this song at that point in time. Luckily, after I wrote the song, a bunch of really awesome advocates got arrested in their senators' offices, and then people started covering the disability portion of this discussion. But I wrote this song kind of about when you're fighting for change, but change hasn't come yet, or it's not being recognized in the way it should be, and how that can be a very frustrating place to be, and how do you keep fighting without losing hope or getting burned out, and keep working on what you believe in. So this goes out to everybody who is watching, who is working on disability rights, to not give up hope and keep up the fight. So here we go. Making sure I have all the buttons pressed the right way. to see me way in the back here. I've been waiting in line. It's been a long time, can't get no service. Still I am hoping for a sign. That one day things will change and we can finally take our place. That history won't forget us or try to minimize our pain. And so why wait? And so why wait? Did you know that when I get angry, I breathe fire? I could burn this place down. You may not realize all of the small ways I am not welcome, but just take a look around. Still, everybody knows that you need a place to go, and living isn't easy if you incinerate your home, and so why stay? And so why stay? I may seem angry, so please forgive me, but I am still not free in this society. How long must we keep fighting for our right to be living? Wrong is overdue for righting. We're all dead to forgiving. So if you hear them make claims of progress, take a good look and see who isn't fair. We need a seat now at the table, so please invite us, or don't pretend to care. Cool. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I could be here. And if Justin wants to get back on for that Q&A, if there are any questions, happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Gaelynn. That was a great performance.
Oh, thank you so much.
That was pretty powerful too.
Awesome,
So,
thank you.
is there a place where people can listen to your music?
Oh, yeah, thanks. I never remember to say that. I have a website, violinscratches.com, so like a cat scratch, violinscratches.com. And if you look at the album link on there, it should give you links to everywhere that it is, Spotify, YouTube, Bandcamp, all the places where my music lives. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into some questions. All right. So I have a question from Steve Anderson. So, hi Gaelynn, it's good to see you again. We loved having you at Hamline University last year. What advice would you give to young people with disabilities who are thinking about getting into the performing arts?
That is a great question. Thanks, Steve. I guess my answer would be twofold. The first I would give to any artist, but especially disabled artists, is at the beginning, it might just be you and your dad and the sound guy at your show. And that it's okay if your music career starts out slowly, because that's actually really the case for everyone. So just keep doing it and don't worry so much about what looks like success on the outside, because most of the time art starts very slowly, and when it looks like somebody blows up, it's because they've actually been playing for like 10 years at very small shows. And then specifically to disabled artists, I would say that it's important to not sell yourself short in terms of accessibility. As I said, I think we're at the beginning of a really big cultural shift, which starts to include disability as diversity. And so every time you speak up for access, you're helping shape our culture for the better. So try to, for example, make sure the places that you play are accessible not just for yourself, but for other people. And then whenever possible, um, find creative ways to be inclusive, like inviting um, disability rights groups out to your show. You know, like make your work inclusive, because that is what is gonna move our work forward. I just think don't sell yourself short, and sometimes that might mean doing events at non-traditional places because I'm touring arts, right? And I have had a lot of trouble finding wheelchair accessible spaces to play. And so I started doing shows at churches, and it's a little bit non-traditional maybe, but it's accessible to everybody. And that is more important to me than image, is just actually being accessible. So anything you can do to further art that is inclusive is important. And just don't be afraid to speak your mind.
Wow, thank you. And so, do you normally perform solo, or do you all the time, or do you also perform in groups as well?
I kind of do a mix. I mean, obviously, right now, because of COVID, most of my performances are solo, although I have figured out a few ways to do performances with people through the internet. It's not perfect yet. But before COVID, I played most of my shows, probably 80% of them solo, but I have a full band for the bigger shows where I can bring them with me if it makes sense. And then I have another duo with a person named Alan Sparhawk. He's the lead singer in Low, and we have a project called The Murder of Crows. And a couple times a year, I get to play with him as well. I do love collaborating with other artists, and so that's one thing that I'm sure I'll always do in some form. But touring is expensive, and so bringing another person all of a sudden makes you have to earn twice as much money. So it's partly it's a logistical thing, is I can't always afford to bring someone with me, but whenever I can, I do, and it's very fun.
And how did you become interested in learning the violin?
That's a
Like,
good question. Yeah. Well, when I was in fourth grade, an orchestra came and played for my elementary school, and I had never seen an orchestra before, and it just really, um, really excited me the way that all the instruments were playing in sync, and the sound of the strings really enthralled me. And so the next year, we had a chance to join orchestra through our public school, and I just got super lucky in that my teacher was willing to adapt the way I play. So she and I experimented with a bunch of different styles for the string instruments, and this worked the best. Playing violin up and right, upright like a tiny cello. That's what worked the best.
can you tell us about your international work? I remember you said earlier that you're able to play internationally. It's
Yeah. Well, the very first tour that we did overseas was because that person, Alan Sparhawk, his band was playing in Ireland, and he asked if I could open, and I did another show on that same tour with a band in the Czech Republic called the Tap Tap, and all the artists in that band are disabled, and so they wanted me to come do a special guest performance with them. So that kind of started out our journeys, and then every year since then, I've gone to the UK um, 5 times now, I think, and those are all just small tours that I book myself. It's pretty challenging with accessibility, but it's fun to travel, and as long as I have the energy for it, I figure I might as well do it now because I do love traveling. And then I've done a couple festivals, one in the UK, I did one in France, and then Reykjavik, Iceland, and then Switzerland. And so we've done a few things. And then the coolest part for me, anyways, has been a couple of these performances were sponsored through the State Department, the Arts Envoy. And so they send artists from all over, from America, all over the world to talk about American values. So I always get to talk about the Americans with Disabilities Act when I go abroad with them, and just the importance of diversity, including disability. And so it's been really fun to be able to I was a poli sci major, so to be able to do some advocacy through the State Department has been something I was never expecting, but has been really fun. I just did a virtual event with Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan and Tajikistan and Uzbekistan for the State Department, and that was neat too, talking about accessibility, because as bad as it is in the U.S. with accessibility, we're one of the only countries, we might even be the only country that has a national law regarding accessibility, and so we are considered in America pioneers for disability rights. So it's fun to talk about it in other countries.
And I just want to remind the audience to ask any questions that you have for Gaelynn, and to also that we put the link to your website in the chat that people can go and visit and see more of your music.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions before we head out for the day?
All right. Do you have any final thoughts?
My final thought is just that that disability rights are human rights, and so that we really, really as a country need to just start thinking about how do we include disability at every decision-making table, right? Every time we talk about any social issue, we're 25% of the population, so we deserve to have a voice in all of American politics, and not just politics, but the way that we work our society. We have to be represented, and so this is a great way to start. So thank you so much for having me, and just remember that if you look around you and you don't see disability represented, that's something that we can all work to change together. So yeah, thank you so much.
It's a very powerful message, I'd like to say. Thank you, Gaelynn, so much for that amazing performance and the discussion. Those were some very powerful words that you said both before and after and during the performance. Right. I'd like to thank our audience for joining us. Join us again on Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Time for our interfaith reflection with Reverend Calvin Peterson. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Your ending CEU code is E1I2. Please take a picture of the QR code with your camera to fill out our presenter evaluation. You will need both the beginning and ending CEU codes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the St. Cloud State University Rehabilitation Counseling Program, the St. Cloud State University Confucius Institute, Hamline University, Metropolitan State University, the St. Cloud State University's President's Office, St. Cloud State University Alumni Foundation, and Middle English Interpreting. Thank you, and join us Sunday for an interfaith reflection with Reverend Calvin Peterson. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Your ending CEU code is E1I2. Please take a picture of the QR code with your camera to fill out our presenter evaluation. You will need both the beginning and ending CEU codes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the St. Cloud State University Rehabilitation Counseling Program, the St. Cloud State University Confucius Institute, Hamline University, Metropolitan State University, the St. Cloud State University's President's Office, St. Cloud State University Alumni Foundation, and Middle English Interpreting. Thank you, and join us Sunday for an interfaith reflection with Reverend Calvin Peterson. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Your ending CEU code is E1I2. 2. Please take a picture of the QR code with your camera to fill out our presenter evaluation. You will need both the beginning and ending CEU codes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the St. Cloud State University Rehabilitation Counseling Program, the St. Cloud State University Confucius Institute, Hamline University, Metropolitan State University, the St. Cloud State University's President's Office, St. Cloud State University Alumni Foundation, and Middle English Interpreting. Thank you, and join us Sunday for an interfaith reflection with Reverend Calvin Peterson. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Your ending CEU code is E1I2. Please take a picture of the QR code with your camera to fill out our presenter evaluation. You will need both the beginning and ending CEU codes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the St. Cloud State University Rehabilitation Counseling Program, the St. Cloud State University Confucius Institute, Hamline University, Metropolitan State University, the St. Cloud State University's President's Office, St. Cloud State University Alumni Foundation, and Middle English Interpreting. Thank you, and join us Sunday for an interfaith reflection with Reverend Calvin Peterson. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Your ending CEU code is E1I2. Please take a picture of the QR code with your camera to fill out our presenter evaluation. You will need both the beginning and ending CEU codes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the St. Cloud State University Rehabilitation Counseling Program, the St. Cloud State University Confucius Institute, Hamline University, Metropolitan State University, the St. Cloud State University's President's Office, St. Cloud State University Alumni Foundation, and Middle English Interpreting. Thank you, and join us Sunday for an interfaith reflection with Reverend Calvin Peterson. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Your ending CEU code is E1I2. Please take a picture of the QR code with your camera to fill out our presenter evaluation. You will need both the beginning and ending CEU codes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the St. Cloud State University Rehabilitation Counseling Program, the St. Cloud State University Confucius Institute, Hamline University, Metropolitan State University, the St. Cloud State University's President's Office, St. Cloud State University Alumni Foundation, and Middle English Interpreting. Thank you, and join us Sunday for an interfaith reflection with Reverend Calvin Peterson. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Your ending CEU code is E1I2. Please take a picture of the QR code with your camera to fill out our presenter evaluation. You will need both the beginning and ending CEU codes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the St. Cloud State University Rehabilitation Counseling Program, the St. Cloud State University Confucius Institute, Hamline University, Metropolitan State University, the St. Cloud State University's President's Office, St. Cloud State University Alumni Foundation, and Middle English Interpreting. Thank you, and join us Sunday for an interfaith reflection with Reverend Calvin Peterson. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Your ending CEU code is E1I2. Please take a picture of the QR code with your camera to fill out our presenter evaluation. You will need both the beginning and ending CEU codes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the St. Cloud State University Rehabilitation Counseling Program, the St. Cloud State University Confucius Institute, Hamlin